Everyone, and welcome to First Things First. It is a glorious Monday morning here in New York City. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer, Cris. We are happy to have Nick Wright back.
Oh, look at that.
You guys pass some notes?
Bart Scott. Where's Bart Scott where you need him? Green Bay wins the division. That's what he wrote there. Write that down, see?
11:23. Let's get this thing going.
Yeah.
You got like 14 other cards of people that come on set and make predictions that are wrong. Tons of news to get to today. The college football playoffs are set. Speaking of, Packers are moving on from Mike McCarthy, but we are going to start with a wild one on Sunday Night Football. Steelers hosting the Chargers. Steelers in the driver's seat most of the game, up 16 in the first half, but the Chargers come all the way back. Take this to the fourth. Take their first lead with just over 8 minutes to go, and Justin Jackson found the end zone. Pittsburgh responds. Ben Roethlisberger to Jalen Samuels. That's in for a touchdown. Chargers now with a shot to win the game. Mike Bagley lines up and misses the field goal attempt. Turns out the Steelers were offsides. Offsides. Second attempt, this one blocked. But guess what? Steelers offsides again. Stop it. Third time's a charm. This time through the uprights. Nails it. Chargers win 33-30. Whoo! Here is Chargers quarterback Philip Rivers on a wild win.
We hadn't had a win like this in a long time. I mean, where we've been down like that and fought back and won. And I know it's never happened here. I just saw that 176-0-1 or 174-0-1 with a 16-point lead at home in the history of the Steelers. So, pretty heck of an accomplishment today.
I hate losing at home. I hate it for our fans. I hate, losing it for my linemen and the rest of these guys. But we'll come in tomorrow, we'll look at it, and we'll move on.
Well, Philip Rivers said it. The Steelers were 174-0-1 with a 16-point lead, and that is now out the window. All right, CC, let's start with you. What did the Chargers prove in this comeback win last night over the Steelers?
Well, a lot of the people in the country have not watched the Chargers. They don't understand what quality of team they've had, even with the significant injuries that they've had. Up and down their roster. Lost their tight end, lost some linebackers, lost some other quality players, lost Joey Bosa for a great period of time. He's back to full strength now, manning that left defensive end. But this is a really, really talented football team. And I think from a coaching standpoint, we don't know a lot about the coach, but you can see through watching tape of them that he operates, that they're well prepared. And they have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. We don't talk about. We probably, of all the elite quarterbacks, we talk about him the least. So to be able to take this young team and to be able to get a win like this in Pittsburgh, do you know what that means as far as the confidence they'll have? Because they've already faced the best of the best. Kansas City, L.A. Rams, they faced these teams and lost very, very close games. So I think that when you get late in the season and you stop losing those games and you start winning them for a young team, especially without their second-best offensive player, Melvin Gordon, who had a tremendous season. Yes, tremendous confidence for that coaching staff and for this team as they travel back. And now, man, they're playing for keeps. Potentially, it's in line for them to potentially get a bye. So a lot of teams stumbling towards the end. There's going to be teams like the Chargers who they're going to catch fire, and we're going to start to have to give them notice. The Chargers, the Texans, teams like that we didn't have in the discussion. We're going to have to put them in the discussion of, are they Super Bowl contenders?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that early in the year the Chargers played two teams in the Chiefs and the Rams. We didn't know how good those teams were going to be. The Chargers lose those games.
Good games.
Good games. They lose closely, tightly contested games. We think, okay, another similar, same old Chargers year. Joey Bosa has some mysterious injury. It's a bone bruise. He's out indefinitely. They lose a couple games early. Looks like they're going to do what they've done the better part of the last decade, somewhere between 7-9, 9-7, to where they just miss out on the playoffs. And since those two losses in the first few weeks, they've lost one game all year. They are in position where 10 days from now on Thursday Night Football, they could be playing the Chiefs for a chance to become the 1 seed in the AFC. Like, one of these teams, the Chiefs and Chargers, are going to end up 12-4, 13-3, and as the 5 seed. Like that's the NFL playoff format, and Phillip Rivers is the biggest reason they've been able to do this. He's the only player in the league that's had multiple touchdown passes in every game. Mahomes hadn't done that. Breeze hasn't done that. The last guy to do that through the first 12 games of a season was Aaron Rodgers all the way back in 2011. And this is one thing we've talked about on this show. At the trade deadline, all these teams making moves. We said no team is going to get a bigger addition than the one the Los Angeles Chargers are going to get when Joey Bosa comes back. And you saw his impact yesterday. You saw a guy who was in the running, or at least preseason contention for Defensive Player of the Year, a guy who last year, in year 2, his first full year of football, or last year, his first full year of football in the NFL, was a dominant player. And so this is a really good team that I'm glad you brought up the coach, because Anthony Lynn's one of the more anonymous coaches in football. And you see how prepared he has his team down 23-7 to Pittsburgh. And you don't lose hope. You
didn't flinch.
Didn't flinch at all. You force in the second half.
Stuck with your game plan, all of it.
And in the second half, your defense. First 3 drives for Pittsburgh in the second half. 15 total plays for 35 total yards.
Yes.
So the offense made plays. Special teams made plays.
And that's his side of the ball. That's where he's cut his teeth. That's what he's known for. Jenny, you bring up a great point, because we see this. Teams get down in the NFL. Man, if you're down more than 2 scores in the NFL, man, you got real big problems. Saturdays, college, see teams come back all the time, but did not panic. Had confidence in the game plan that we did have, even though it didn't play out in the first half. Like, we're going to stick with it. And you cannot watch the L.A. Chargers play and not watch Derwin James and say, man, that's a special football player.
Yeah.
Like, I have not seen a safety play like him. And I'm going to pause for a minute, because I know last week that we celebrated the death of Sean Taylor. Sean Taylor. I haven't seen a player play like Sean Taylor until I seen Derwin James play. Skill set, can play in the box, can play the middle of the field, great ball skills, great tackler. Like, he should be at the top of the list of rookies of the year. We got some rookies playing some great football, but Derwin James kept them in that football. He dominated the second quarter.
Oh, my God.
Kept that team in the game.
I want to go back to something you said earlier, which all the Chargers players echoed in the pregame interviews, which was, hey, we know the knock on us is that we can't finish out a season, right? We didn't close out a season. We play really well, very quietly, and then we sort of drift off. And for the first time, they all feel like they're on the same page, and they're doing just that. Let's turn to the other side with the Steelers. How concerned are you now, CC, that they've now lost their second in a row?
Well, the reason why I have a great deal of concern is based on what are the goals of the organization. Because sometimes in television, when you start analyzing things, sometimes you lose perspective of what an organization, what their goal is, what did they set out to do, or an individual. So if someone, I always do this with LeBron. Well, what were LeBron's goals, Nick? And forget about how I feel. And based on the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, when they meet every year, they're one of a handful of teams. The first day, the goal is win the division and win the Super Bowl. They're one of a handful that can only do that every year. So, no, this is not a Super Bowl team. And I saw colossal failure on all sides. The coaching was bad. At the end, the game's tied up. You don't allow your team to jump offside 3 times. It's like a professional golfer. I'm going to allow him to hit 3 wedges. Oh, he hit the first one. He hit that one in the water. Oh, go ahead and try it again. You cannot give a field goal kicker extra time to prepare, to be able to kick. I'm going to let him. No, you can't let him kick it again.
Especially a Chargers kicker.
You cannot jump offside, no matter who you're playing, to give them an extra attempt at it. People say, well, the game's tied. You don't have anything to lose. Yes, you do. Because he could miss it, especially the Chargers kicker. So I didn't like that. You can see on the football field they struggled not running the football. And defensively, with a 2-touchdown lead, 2 two-point conversions, you can't protect that. Special teams gave up a big touchdown. So for me, at all levels, the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, they're going to regret this game. You can't lose 2 late in November and expect to be a Super Bowl contender.
I'm just very excited for Tuesday around 11:05 a.m. Central Time to hear Big Ben tell me who that critical interception in the red zone, whose fault that one was, because I thought he got hit. That ball fluttered so badly, and then I saw it again. Oh, no, he didn't get hit. I'm curious whose fault it was that with a 2-score lead after halftime, your first 3 drives, you punt on all 3, and you run 15 plays for 35 total yards. I'm excited to find those things out because this is a Steelers team, Jenna. You said it off the top, a 16-point lead at home. Just make it a 14-point lead. They said this one during the broadcast. See, you mentioned it this morning. Going into last night, you get a 14-point lead at any point in the game if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. 220, 0-2.
Wow.
They'd done it 222 times. They'd never lost. And now they've lost. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, forget a bye. Like, you've got that big game against New England that I've had circled all year long that could determine the 2 or the 3. No. Now New England can lose that game and still be okay. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, they're only a half game up on the fighting Lamar Jacksons right now. Like Baltimore, who was left for dead, 7-5. Pittsburgh 7-4-1. This is a terrible loss. I understand Pittsburgh's going to be upset. They got one of their touchdowns on a false start. The NFL officials this year have been.
They still had a 2-touchdown lead after that.
Absolutely right.
Okay.
And they could have had a larger lead if, when you're driving, still with the lead in the first half, you don't throw a terrible red zone pick. Like, this is a devastating loss for Pittsburgh. I still think they'll win their division. But winning your division without a bye, all that means is you're going on the road to either Kansas City, New England, or Houston in round 2. Like, it is a terrible loss. And it's the 3rd straight game they've played poorly. They played terrible against the Jags, and they got away with it. They played poorly last week against Denver, and they lost. And they played poorly this week at home.
And compounding that, they did lose James Conner with a leg contusion. We'll have to wait and see how bad that is. All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, big news out of Green Bay. We'll talk about Mike McCarthy. And now, what's next for Aaron Rodgers? Next on First Things First.
Ever wonder how to get the hottest new sneakers, the ones that barely hit shelves? The answer? StockX, a revolutionary new marketplace for buying and selling 100% authentic sneakers, streetwear, watches, and handbags. Millions are already using StockX to find everything after it sells out, like the hottest new streetwear from brands like Gucci, Supreme, and Bape. StockX allows users to buy and sell pre-owned, excellent condition luxury handbags and watches from brands like Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Rolex, Omega, and many more. StockX is the go-to place for anyone looking for new streetwear without the hassle of waiting in long lines for the new Jordans or the new Yeezys. StockX provides tons of historical price data for your buying and selling needs, allowing you to know the average price that an item sells at and how many times an item has been resold. And StockX uses the same principles as the stock market to make buying and selling as safe and easy as possible. Last but not least, StockX provides up-to-date news on the latest drop dates for the newest streetwear. So go to StockX.com/FTF. That is StockX.com/FTF. StockX. Now you know.
We'll get to Mike McCarthy and the Packers in a second, but first, Giants, Bears, what a game. Odell, multitasking yesterday, throws the 49-yard touchdown strike to a wide-open Russell Shepard.
See, I got an idea here.
Go ahead.
Because the Giants are winning now, they might not be able to draft a quarterback. Draft a wide receiver. Let Odell try quarterback.
Oh, yeah. You saw on that onside kick how much courage he got. Put him in the pocket. Watch how much
They got special rules for the quarterback.
Yeah.
They can't hit him no more.
He was trying to bat it away.
He's not trying to get hit. Okay.
All right, same game. Allen Robinson traps the ball on B.W. Webb's head before completing the catch.
This was an entertaining football game. And given the fact that the Saints lost on Thursday, a really damaging loss for the Bears and their hopes of sneaking into one of those bye spots in the NFC. Thought they were going to steal it at the end.
Thought they were going to steal it. But we know those backup quarterbacks, Nick, huh? Eventually they look like backups right from the beginning. Pick 6 the other
Man,
one.
Great catch. My guy Chase Daniel looked a lot better when he wasn't playing.
Texans wideout DeAndre Hopkins showing why he's one of the best in the NFL. Great over-the-shoulder grab against the Browns.
Oh, a little helmet pops off. Let the dreads fly. Nuke. This is an entertaining game, too. You're going to be talking to Baker next week, see, right?
Yeah, I'm covering that one. Carolina at Cleveland. Nuke is one of the most underrated wide receivers. Yeah, I'm going to be talking to Baker.
He's got to bounce back.
Finally, Keenan Allen, right place, right time, wild touchdown. Rivers pass deflected off 2 Steelers before Allen caught it.
Man, one of those Steelers could have been flagged for leading with his helmet on his teammate.
Don't I tell you, Nick, those defensive players are not real smart. Yeah. You know the cornerback's in man. He's going to undercut the guy. The safety, he should be going for the upfield shoulder. He shouldn't even be coming on that angle. So that's what I told you, Pittsburgh. Man, bad coaching, bad defensive plays, bad interception, bad special teams.
And yet they still could have won it at the very end and didn't. All right, after what most likely will be the second straight season missing the playoffs, and after a season of friction with Aaron Rodgers, the Packers fired head coach Mike McCarthy. Happened after last night's brutal loss at home to the lowly 3-win Arizona Cardinals. Offensive coordinator Joe Philbin named interim head coach for the 4-7-1 Green Bay Packer team. Mike McCarthy had been the Packers head coach since 2006, winning a Super Bowl in 2010. C, we'll start with you. What was your reaction to this move by the Packers?
Not surprised at all. We had heard a whole bunch about it, and just knowing people in Green Bay that Aaron Rodgers might be the most talented quarterback, and he's definitely the most talented probably throwing the football we've seen in a long time playing this game. But he's also one of the most complicated and probably one of the most hard to deal with on a daily basis. And you can see, and a lot of times, you know, when you're trying to analyze a football player, you like to be able to know, like, where they came from, what's their makeup, so how they got to this point. So typically in crisis situation, you find out what they are. Aaron, I'm concerned about. I'm concerned at this point in his career, with so many good quarterbacks playing and the pressure to win, with him being the highest paid, that Aaron's not real good at relationships. When he came into the NFL, we didn't know anything about the relationship that he has with his family. It's become more and more public that he doesn't have a relationship with anyone close in his family. We knew the relationship. He didn't have a relationship with Brett Favre. And then now we're hearing the last couple of years he's got a problem with Mike McCarthy in that relationship. It's really hard in the NFL if you don't know how to manage your relationships. And what I'm afraid of right now, Aaron Rodgers is getting ready to go through more scrutiny than any other time in his career. Yep. Because now this is going to be like a basketball player, demanding for the coach to be gone. And Mark Murphy, their president, he's going to ask Aaron on this next hire, who do they think they should be looking at? Aaron's going to be involved in it. And that, to me, is something a player should never be involved in. And I believe Aaron is going to come back to haunt him because he's going to be tied to this coach and the Packers' success because he's complained about who they hired and fired as a quarterback coach, who they were, their personnel, Jordy Nelson, and the rest of these young wide receivers. So now Aaron Rodgers is getting ready to get more pressure than any point in his career, even than when he took over for Brett Favre. Even more pressure there, and we're getting ready to see what Aaron is made of coming down the stretch of his career as the highest paid player, which is also something, Jenna, he demanded. Him and his agent demanded he was the highest paid. He's got all those things. Now he's got the coach fired. Okay, so Aaron, it's your franchise. All the pressure is on you.
All right, and you use the basketball analogy, but here's one of the reasons why in basketball, and we've talked about this, that it's not as risky of a situation. In basketball, there's only 5 guys on your team on the court, and you play both ways. So if you really are good enough, if you're the Aaron Rodgers of the NBA, if you are the most talented we've seen in a generation, you can, by on your own, make your team a playoff team, make your team a championship contender. Aaron Rodgers could get all the things he wanted, come back next year and have an MVP caliber season, but he only on the field half the time. Like, you can't, even as a quarterback, you can't put your imprint on the game the way an NBA superstar can. Now, I have no problem whatsoever with Aaron Rodgers demanding to be the highest paid guy. He's the best player in the league. It's the position that gets paid the most. And as we've said before, he also was next in line. That he will only be the highest paid guy for a year or so.
But also, you immediately
hamstring your team.
You immediately. So don't say, hey, I deserve this. Hey, listen, let me tell you what you deserve. All right, if you want to put a championship team on the field, if you want to help the organization, if you want to have something to do, if you want to have a say, economically is the most powerful say. All right? Tom Brady, people talk about what he's done on the field. Tom Brady, the most significant thing he's done the last 5 to 7 years was he took a pay cut so that they would have the flexibility to get whatever players they want, whatever coaches they wanted. But Tom Brady making that move right there, it's significant in how they move forward and the type of teams they could put on the field when he got older.
I also think Brady, forget the advantage he has with his wife's income. I also think he has an advantage over any other quarterback, Rodgers included, that if he does take less money, he can believe his team is going to spend that money the right way. Like a lot of other guys say, okay, I take a pay cut and then you blow the money. Like the Jags, go spend the money you save on me on Dante Moncrief at $9 million. But here's the, I don't buy into that Aaron Rodgers got Mike McCarthy fired. I think he wanted him fired. I think he could have helped save him, and he did not. And I think the lack of the bad relationship was a contributing factor. But I think Mike McCarthy underachieving as Packers head coach is why he got fired. And I was listening to all the broadcasts yesterday, and there is a special dispensation we give to a championship coach. We do not give to a championship player. I heard people I really respect talking time and again yesterday about how, oh, you don't do this to Mike McCarthy. Man, players get cut midseason all the time.
That's coaches in television. They're just trying to protect the coaches. There ain't no coach in his right mind talking about, oh, it's disrespectful if I fire you during the season. Let me tell you something. If you're going to fire me at the end of the season, you can give me my walking papers now. No need for me to come back through this door not one single day with this fake smile on my face. So all those people on TV, trust me, they trying to protect the fraternity. Do they really, really believe that? I doubt it.
And because McCarthy even said himself after the game, I don't know what I'm going to say to them tomorrow. Well, now you don't have to worry about that. And now he gets a jump start on whatever his next job is going to be.
Right.
The Packers get a jump start on whomever they're going to want to hire. But I agree with C. Rodgers, any Packers failures prior to this year, they had been couched, and I think rightfully, as despite Aaron Rodgers. Any Packers failures moving forward
is
are going to be, it's going to be said because of Aaron Rodgers.
Quickly, CeCe was not surprised. Were you surprised they did it mid-season? Was that on the table?
Well, I mean, you lose to the Cardinals at home. You lose all of a sudden 4 of 5 after the bye.
Win at home. Josh Rosen.
Yeah. I mean, that was going into yesterday, I didn't think there was a chance Mike McCarthy would be fired yesterday. But I also didn't think there was a chance Packers were going to lose that game.
Mike McCarthy was going to get fired, and all the people who called me yesterday, and I told them, put stacks and stacks on Green Bay. The cold weather, hey, man, the Cardinals going to get on the bus, go in the stadium, they're going to pack the stuff up, go back to the airport. So all the people who called me as their inside guy, they fired me. McCarthy need to get some, too.
Yeah. On that note, I have no money left.
Time now for Put a Grade on It, sponsored by CarMax. We'll get to Nick's finances in just a second.
They're disastrous.
All the headlines.
Chapter 11.
All the headlines from this game were Mike McCarthy getting fired, but his quarterback Aaron Rodgers didn't help him a ton. Threw for just 233 yards, 1 touchdown. All right, C, put a grade on Aaron Rodgers' day yesterday.
I can't do better than a C. Knowing the talent, knowing what he was up against, I can't give him better than a C. Aaron Rodgers, the expectations should be higher, but you could see in the game he was pressing. He deserves a C.
I give him an F. I give C's gambling advice an F. I give my marriage right now an F. Once the big guy gets looked at, I give everything about yesterday and the Packers game an F. I didn't even need to cover the 13. Just win outright. Just include it.
Just win the game?
Just win outright. You can't beat Josh. Where's Josh Rosen from, C?
Southern California.
Some type of beach, man.
Some beach. How's he going to do in the frozen tundra of Lambeau?
Oh, he didn't do good, but they beat him. He didn't do good.
Yeah.
Hey, you got to give me at least a D. I'm above your marriage because I'm permanent.
Hey.
True.
Hey. Honey, I love you.
Gotta take a break.
Yeah, you're the one that gave your marriage an F.
No, I gave.
Doofus.
No, I didn't.
Coming up, could Dwayne Haskins swoop in, steal the Heisman from
Put a
Tua
grade
and
on it.
Kyler Murray next on First Things First?
Yeah,
Welcome back to the best in the Big Ten. Hit the hardwood tonight on FS1 as 14th ranked Iowa taking on number 9 Michigan State. Big Ten college hoops tips off at 6 Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app.
It's a good game. 2 teams that play real defense, not the type some other Big Ten team Wisconsin plays. I'm excited to watch Tom Izzo's team.
Lupe.
Really good team.
I'll be rooting for her. Time for us to go viral. Jalen Ramsey, we learned, both spicy in interviews and in efforts to help other players. Here he is yesterday, faking out, helping Andrew Luck.
Hey, Jalen made a spectacular play to end the game yesterday. The tackle keeping him inbounds in order to let the clock run out so the Colts can get one last shot at it.
What was it?
That was
Bad loss.
I mean, that was a vintage Jags win. So the old 6-0 behind the strength of Cody Kessler. Didn't see that one coming yesterday either, see?
Oh, Jaylen, little snotty-nosed little kid, of course, put his hand out to help up one of the quarterbacks. Ah, no, psych.
Miss me with that.
Yeah, oh, Jaylen.
All right, time for stories to start your morning.
I see how you see through rose-colored glasses. It was nice. Oh, last
Sponsored by Gillette Clear Gel. Deshaun Watson led the Texans to a big win over Baker Mayfield and the Browns. For Houston, it was their 9th win in a row. Nick, are we talking about the Texans as legitimate contenders now in the AFC?
Last week I said that of all the teams that make the playoffs in the AFC, the Texans are the ones that I feel least confident in. I feel the same way this morning, but I give them – they played a great game yesterday, and they made Baker had been – a month of football, Baker had thrown 2 picks. Yesterday he threw 3. They played an excellent game and made Baker look the worst he's looked in 6 weeks.
Yeah, Jenna, I believe the Texans, they are legitimate contenders. They're also one of the teams that's trending to get better. So why would we put a ceiling on them? There's still 4 more weeks of football. If they keep doing this the right way, we have to be able to give them some type of respect. Romeo Crennel did a great job as defensive coordinator against a young quarterback, forcing those turnovers.
All right, guys, let's move on to the SEC championship game, and what a story for Jalen Hertz. 11 months after being pulled in the national title game against the same team in the same building, Hertz replaces an injured Tua Tagovailoa to lead a comeback win over Georgia and win the SEC championship. All this after he decided to stay at Alabama after losing his starting job. All right, CC, you were out there. What'd you make of Jalen's day?
Man, I got a lot of respect for Jalen. Man, if he would come to me and ask for me for advice what to do, I could understand, man, if he wanted to leave Alabama after having tremendous 2 seasons there. Did he deserve to be benched? It's Alabama, and they'll over-recruit. The quarterback they have as a starter, man, was better than him. But to see him, the guts, the wherewithal, the leadership, man, that's grown people stuff. That's not no little kid stuff. He stayed there. Every practice running the scout team. Man, you know what it takes to be able to do that? Don't know if I necessarily had it in me. Salute Jalen. Tremendous job of being ready.
It was great. 7 of 9 passing, 82 yards and a touchdown. Another touchdown on the ground on 5 carries for 28 yards. And just added to his Alabama lore. He's led him to a national championship game, took him another season to a national championship win, took another season to the game, and now he led them in a comeback to get back in the playoff, to win the SEC, to complete an undefeated regular season. I also don't think I would have stayed. And
the reason, too, I'd be a little careful with this one, because Alabama, even if they lose this game, they still get in the college football playoff system, no matter what would happen. So they still would have gotten in, and Tua is still going to be back the next game as the starter.
Absolutely, but it's still a great moment for him.
Yeah,
and in the moment.
But it didn't save their season. It saved his football career.
Correct.
Yes.
Big weekend for CC, who was also watching the Ohio State game, both games that you managed to see.
Absolutely.
That's
Private
amazing.
jet. That's how
all
we do
over
it.
the place.
That's how we do this.
Alabama gets the top seed in the playoff race. They'll face number 4 Oklahoma, while 2 versus 3 will be a battle of unbeaten teams in Clemson and Notre Dame. Georgia and Ohio State left on the outside now, looking in. CC, did the committee get it right, choosing Oklahoma over Georgia and Ohio State?
I thought they did. I thought they did. You can't have the Power 5 conferences, and you can't have an independent out there that says, okay, if you're able to go undefeated as an independent, given the schedule they had for Notre Dame, yes, they should have been in. And you can't have 2 conference champions in the Power 5, that being Oklahoma and Ohio State, and with them having 1 loss, and you're not going to take either one of them. So the way the playoff is set up, basically, they had to kind of listen to what their bylaws and everything, because the spirit of them setting this up was for the Power 5 conferences. If you're an independent and you have the tough schedule, which Notre Dame did, then you should be able to get in. I don't want to see Georgia, Alabama again, just because Georgia played them tight in this game. No, Georgia's lost twice. They didn't win the SEC. Now, if they win the SEC, I can understand that. You know, I can understand Ohio State not being there with that big loss at Purdue. That was something you can't recover from. Purdue is not a good football team, nor a good football program. At 6-6, when you lose to them by 29 points, you are at the mercy of the court. In the last 2 years, those are the two things that have hurt Ohio State. They didn't deserve to be in the Final Four.
Listen, this was as simple of a last four as I think we've had in the entire system. You had 3 undefeated teams. They were definitely getting in. We knew the seeding as well. Alabama was going to be 1. Clemson was going to be 2. Notre Dame was going to be 3. And then of the 3 arguments, you had Ohio State. CC already made the argument against them. You get drilled by a bad team. You then have Georgia, who had not only a 20-point loss to LSU, but 2 losses on their schedule. And then you have Oklahoma, who had 1 loss on a neutral site, on a field goal at the gun against their arch rival, who's a good team, and they then avenged that loss this weekend. Like, this, to me, any result other than this would have been foolishness. Now, the only thing I disagree with as far as the conversation surrounding it was, if you really, I heard a lot of people saying it's got to be about the best. The SEC, during the game, Alabama, Georgia tweeted 4 best teams. If you really want to have a discussion about the 4 best teams, then yeah, Georgia should be in it. But it's not Oklahoma who would be getting left out. It'd be Notre Dame. But you can't have a 2-loss team jump an undefeated team, especially an undefeated team that's like Notre Dame, which is in its own special category of a non-Power 5 school, but gets kind of the Power 5 consideration. I think the 4 best teams in the country are Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Georgia, but I don't think you can leave out an undefeated Notre Dame who beat Michigan, Stanford, Virginia Tech, and Syracuse. Like, they did everything they were supposed to do.
So of the possible options, this was the safest 4 that the committee could pick, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I mean, they got it right. These things are won on the field. If Georgia wins, then we have a different conversation. They've earned their way in it. Alabama, Clemson, they've dominated college football the last several years. So we knew they were going to be at the top. The Irish, when they're independent, and they have a strong enough schedule. They beat Michigan, the head-to-head. Man, people thought Michigan was going to be in the college football playoff until a couple of weeks ago. So Notre Dame should be in at undefeated, and you cannot neglect the Power 5 conference, especially with only having 1 loss with 2 teams that are champions of those conferences.
What happened in that Michigan game again?
Yeah. Basketball, they have a better chance. They're a basketball school.
I'm sorry, Nick.
It is unbelievable that for that Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, those 3 teams were in the playoff last year. Alabama and Clemson have been in the playoff for like the 2 of them at the top of the playoff for the last 3 years. To see these, or for the last 4 years, to see those 3 teams, Oklahoma doing it, quarterback change. Clemson made the playoff back-to-back years a couple years ago after Deshaun Watson left. Alabama obviously has had multiple quarterbacks. Those 3 programs, Alabama and Clemson in particular, but Oklahoma the last few years have really distinguished themselves among the rest, with Georgia right there as well.
All right, moving on to the Heisman race. Speaking of quarterbacks, where Dwayne Haskins had the type of Big Ten championship performance that'll give voters reason to consider him, along with Tua and Kyler Murray. Haskins threw for nearly 500 yards and 5 touchdowns in the Buckeyes' 45-24 win over Northwestern. He finishes the regular season with a Big Ten record, 47 touchdown passes and just 8 interceptions. Here he is after Saturday's big game.
I was told JD at the last play it was all worth it. All the workouts, all the sprints, all the meetings, it was worth it. I'm so blessed. I can't believe it. You know, God is good.
There is no denying that this team went through some ups and downs this year, but how your teammates handled adversity. What does it say about your guys to finish in this fashion?
We're a remarkable team, a very, very smart group of young men, and we came together in a tough time, and we showed the world what it's like to come together.
All right, CC, what do you think? Has Haskins really closed the gap in the Heisman race after what you saw this weekend?
Not just this weekend. Throughout the season, he's been consistent. The last 2 weekends, if you haven't watched, 11 touchdown passes against Michigan, #1 defense, and Northwestern, who's representing the other side of the conference in the conference championship. So he's done it at the highest level against the best competition. He's been consistent. I said this before the season. He was going to be the best quarterback that's ever played at Ohio State. They've been playing football 125 years. That institution has never seen someone throw the ball. He can roll out to his right and to his left. He can throw the ball short, intermediate, deep down the field. He's got touch. He's got a cannon. He's a very, very good kid. And I think that the way he's handled himself after taking over for a 4-year starter in J.T. Barrett has been tremendous. And as I said before, being the best at a position to an institution that's had a lot of great players, but not necessarily at quarterback, He's had a tremendous year, and yes, he should be in New York.
And it's not just Ohio State records he's breaking, right? I mean, I was watching
Well,
the game.
I just think Ohio State, when you put that into context, like,
Right.
I mean, to be the greatest quarterback in 125 years of that institution's history, I think is fairly significant.
Absolutely, but I was just going to expand it. I mean, to the Big Ten as a whole. Like, he was knocking down Drew Brees' Big Ten records.
Yep.
I mean, and so here's the beef I have with the Heisman. It is considered the highest individual honor for some people in all of sports. Like, that's the way it's billed. And yet, the way it's voted on, it is not given that respect. Tua, it was for some people, you know when Tua won this Heisman? At the end of last season. During the comeback against Georgia when he came in. That put him in the pole position, even though what happened last season should have nothing to do with the Heisman this year. We found out during the broadcast that over 10% of Heisman voters have already submitted their ballots before this weekend. The hell are you doing? Like,
now, that's not anything new.
I know.
They've done that before.
No, absolutely. But I think in some years it's been crystal clear who the winner's going to be. But obviously, some guys just think, oh no, my mind's made up. Like, here's the reality: Tua's probably going to win it. My vote would be for Kyler Murray. I think there's a strong argument for Dwayne Haskins. But Tua is, of the three guys, third in completion percentage, third in yards, third in touchdowns, second in rating, second in rushing yards. He's not leading in any of the measurables.
But if you're going to argue for Tua, you have to realize, too, he didn't play a lot of time because they were blowing teams out. So these numbers, as gaudy as they are, they could have been even more impressive. Now, it's also, he's on the Alabama team that is undefeated. All those things. He's the best player on the best team, having the type of season that no one in Alabama has ever had. And if you add that extra time of him playing, what do you think his numbers would have been? They would have been even more impressive.
And I understand that part of it, that he wasn't playing fourth quarters for basically the entire season. I get that. I think this is as close of a Heisman race, or it should be as close of a Heisman race as we've seen. I feel like it's a coronation. And that I think Kyler Murray has as good of an argument as anyone. I think as of late, Dwayne Haskins has a great argument, but it feels like some people made up their mind to vote for Tua 5 weeks ago.
I think the indictment on an Oklahoma quarterback or a Big 12 quarterback is, look at the numbers the last quarterback did before this quarterback took over. Now, you can't do that at Ohio State. Been like, oh, man, look at the difference between J.T. Barrett and this guy. Wow, big difference. Well, let's look at Jalen Hertz compared to Tua. Wow. Look at Baker Mayfield. Look at the quarterback before Baker Mayfield, Oklahoma. Look at whoever is the best quarterback in the Big 12. They have gaudy numbers because the defenses are atrocious. So if I'm arguing against him, that's my argument. These defenses are so bad. And you get those numbers in the Big 12 compared to numbers in the SEC, I believe there's no comparison.
I totally agree with that, and I want to make this clear because I hate when we're advocating for one guy, it sounds like we're tearing another guy down. Tua's amazing and has had an amazing season and has as good of a first dozen games or 13 games of a college football career as anyone possibly could have had. I think it's really close, and I think it's unfortunate that 1/9 of the voters have decided before you saw Kyler do what he did and Dwayne do what he did and Tua play ineffectively and get hurt, that their mind was already made up when the conference championship games are supposed to be part of what makes you the Heisman Trophy winner.
All right, let's take a break there. Coming up, let's get back to the pros. Tom Brady hits one of the greatest milestones of his career. That's next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, Super Bowl champ Cris is here.
Hey.
Great to see you, Cris.
Good to see you, Jenna. How was your weekend?
weekend was great.
Okay, weekend was good.
It was good. I saw a movie on Saturday.
What movie did you see?
We don't really need details.
I saw the Queen movie.
The Queen
It's
movie.
called Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
We don't really need the
CeCe gave me
details.
great advice on what to do.
Gotcha.
So the first scene, it opens
Canty,
up.
this is your fault. Let's talk about the page.
So we're about to get a film review?
Here we go.
Okay.
2 thumbs up. Tom Brady and the Patriots taking on the Vikings in Foxborough. Pick this up in the third. Brady to Josh Gordon. Nice throw, nice catch, nice touchdown. Pats up 17-10. Fourth quarter now. Vikings pick up the fourth down. Bill Belichick challenges the spot. Adam Thielen felt like maybe one of the Patriots faked an injury to give Belichick time to review it. The two had words. You can read lips. And then they played football again. Patriots up 24-10. Kirk Cousins trying to lead the comeback. And that doesn't help. Picked off in the end zone. Patriots go on to win. They're now 9-3 on the season. Chris Canty, we'll talk about movies later. Are the Patriots rounding into form at exactly the right time, especially considering what happened to the Steelers yesterday?
Well, let me say this. I mean, if you want to talk about movies, I could have told you how this movie was going to play out yesterday at 4 o'clock.
Yep.
I mean, is it December?
Right.
Was the game in Foxborough?
Yep.
What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
The New England Patriots are going to win. Brady and Belichick are 59-11 in December. So when you consider that, I
What
mean,
are
it's
they?
just 59-11. So that they don't lose a whole lot. I mean, that's an NFL record. So I mean, that puts into context how good this team is at home in the month of December. They understand the importance of being able to build momentum as we get closer and closer to the postseason. For me, when I looked at that game, I feel like that game was lost by the Vikings in the sequence of series coming out of the halftime. So before the half, you're able to work the 2-minute drill. You get a touchdown out of it. Your defense had done a great job of holding the Patriots offense down. Coming out of the half, the Patriots get the ball. Your defense forces a 3 and out. Then, you know, you're not able to do a whole lot with the football. And then, of course, you go 3 and out. You give the ball back to the Patriots. They put together a 12-play drive, but Gostkowski misses the field goal. And so then you end up getting the ball back. I think you only get 3 points out of it. And then the Patriots come back and they score a touchdown. Then you have another possession where you don't get any points out of it. You give the ball back to them. They score a touchdown again. I mean, this is a New England Patriots team that at home had only scored less than 30 points once. And that was the first game of the season against the Houston Texans. So if you're the Vikings offense, you know you got to score points at some point in that game. Your defense kept it close for the majority of the game for the first 2.5 quarters. But then when Kirk Cousins is not being able to sustain drives, when you're 3 of 12 on third downs and you don't have a lot of opportunities in the red area, you're going to come up short against the Patriots in Foxborough every single time.
And this is where the Patriots, this is where they're so special, and this is why they're the most consistent team across all of sports, is they weren't great offensively. And they still won by 2 scores. They, all of a sudden, just at the time you need it the most, let's have our best defensive performance of the year. Let's Jedi mind meld the Minnesota Vikings into not running the football. Now, I understand they've run the football less than any team all year long. They have John DeFilippo. They have been a pass Kirk Cousins-friendly offense. But Dalvin Cook had 9 carries for 84 yards. That's 9.5 a carry. And the question there is, why'd you only have 9? Like, why did they not do that more often? The Patriots convinced them your best shot to beat us is throw the football repeatedly, and you hold them to where their only touchdown of the game was what you said, right before the half. They tried to out-Patriots the Patriots, score right before the half, make sure you can't then score with enough time left. I think they had 15 seconds left, did New England. And now all of a sudden, this is a bad loss for Minnesota that I know we'll get into. And for New England, they're exactly where they want to be right now. Positioned to have a bye. They have the tiebreaker over Houston. If Kansas City drops one, they have the tiebreaker over Kansas City. And Pittsburgh, who they get to play later, they are a game and a half up on Pittsburgh. So they are perfectly positioned, despite, once again, I didn't think they were overwhelming offensively. Brady talked during the week, I want to take more chances. I'm being a little too careful with the ball. He threw a pick that you thought might allow Minnesota to get back in the game. Cousins gave it right back. It's Patriots at home at Foxborough. You said it exactly right.
I'm with you, Jenna. Jenna and I are tired of trying to convince people about New England. They're not going to be any good. When it's time to start passing out the trophies, they're going to be there. And I had a unique perspective on this weekend, and it was based on Saturday at the Big Ten Championship. I ended up bumping into Jonathan Kraft, all right, Mr. Kraft's son. And I know him because I went with the family to Israel and everything. We were there. He's representing Northwestern. He's got a daughter there, and he's friends with the president of the university. And he was like, you want to go to the game tomorrow? And I was like, no, unfortunately, I got some stuff I got to do here. I wish I could. I wish I could have jumped on this private jet and gone to New England to watch him play the Vikings. He said, oh, you don't want to come because it's going to be a rough game for the Vikings. And I was like, Jonathan. I mean, Jonathan's aggressive. He's not no real big guy, but typically people don't fire off like that. And then I was like, man, please tell your dad thank you for the message, the birthday message we had on the show. Yeah. And he said, man, you're one of my dad's favorites. I'm getting ready to call him right now. I talked to Mr. Kraft, and I was like, man, I'm thinking about coming to the game tomorrow. You don't want to come up here, Chris. We're not having it. And I'm like, my goodness. I mean, we know Belichick. I mean, we know Brady. Yeah. But you're not thinking Jonathan Kraft on a Saturday night in Indianapolis, he's going to be telling me you don't want none of this. I mean, it's the philosophy of the organization. Like, they win top to bottom. We're not surprised. This is what's going to happen. They're going to be in the Final Four. That's what they do. And the rest of the league, They just set it up for them every year. A few weeks ago, we were talking about all the Monday night game, they scoring all these points. The standard in this league, I know we got the logo and everything. Everyone's always said, let's protect the logo. If we're going to talk about championships, though, first, we need to change the trophy to Belichick's name on it.
Wow.
But the standard is in New England. And what they do at Gillette, all this other stuff is just hodgepodge just till we get to the end of the movie. We know what the end means, and we know New England is going to be part of the storyline at the end.
It's trendy. The points, the high-scoring offenses, it's all trendy. You said it a couple weeks ago. If you make New England your standard, the button it up, focus on the next week and not 5 weeks out, focus on what you have to do to win. It doesn't have to be flashy, get your first downs, walk out of there with a win. That should be your standard because that's actually sustainable.
Well, but, okay, agreed. But there's a lot of things that should be standards that are only, you can only make it your standard if you have the ingredients for that.
Well, this is what we can do, Jenna. It's our show. It's our standard.
No.
Okay, Jenna and I, as we talk about these teams, until someone changes it, because we have history on our side to believe, and no one's out there changing history. Remember Philadelphia? Oh, it's fun to work here. They're not even going to be in the playoffs potentially. So it's not trendy.
No. The point that I was making isn't that when you're analyzing it, you shouldn't look at them in the standard. The point I'm making is the reason more teams don't emulate it is because they can't emulate it.
We're not talking about teams. How we should analyze things.
Got it. I was talking about teams. I was responding to the reason when we're talking about the league as a whole. Why don't more teams do it the New England way? Well, it's hard if you don't have Brady and Belichick.
Because a lot of the coaches don't believe in it, Jenna.
Right.
They don't believe in it. They think their way is better, and it's turned out that the Patriot way.
Just ask Doug Peterson. Exactly.
Well, that's what it comes down to. But ultimately, it's the culture that allows New England to have that sustained success. And you thought with the Minnesota Vikings, with that championship caliber defense, that they were going to be able to infuse some more talent onto that roster, particularly at the quarterback position with Kirk Cousins making $28 million a year. Yesterday's game was a game that Kirk Cousins needed to show up.
That's why you paid him.
That's why you paid him all that money.
I can break down the Vikings for y'all.
Like that.
But y'all can blame it on the quarterback. But what about DeFilippo? What about the lack of tight end productivity? What about you only got 2 weapons on the outside? So Bill Belichick, you're going to tell him we're only going to throw to the guys on the outside. All right? Stephon Diggs and Thielen, they're the 2 number 1 targets. You cannot play New England and be one-dimensional. So I knew this was going to happen.
Exactly.
You don't have a tight end threat. You don't have a running game. The only result is for you to get choked out.
The thing is this, they could have had a running game. Like, that's where this is. I understand that, like,
you thought they were just going to change for this game?
What
I've been watching the Vikings.
I thought that was the spot that you knew what Belichick was going to try to take away was either Thielen or Diggs, one of them at least. And I thought that the Vikings potentially would see if we have success early on the ground, let's stick with it.
That's John DeFilippo, that next great young mind everyone's trying to make the next next great guru. All right, he called those plays. Don't be blaming Kirk Cousins. He called those plays. So if we're going to start talking about breaking it down, this game plan I thought was awful. One-dimensional, and they ate that game plan up. New England, of course, Jenna.
And they left it with a loss. All right, Candy, stick around. Coming up, did the Steelers' Super Bowl hopes go out the window with their loss to the Chargers? Next on First Things First. Back here, First Things First. Fox Sports college football analyst Joel Klatt. First time, long time, not in a box, but right over here.
No, right in the flesh.
Man?
In the
Good
flesh.
to see you.
What's going on,
Great
bud?
to see
Welcome, man.
you.
I see you got on your blue. You representing Michigan? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That was a couple weeks ago. I'm so sorry.
No representation.
Welcome
My wife
to
just says
Spicy
it's my good
Monday.
color.
Welcome
your
to
good
Buckeye
color.
TV. Oh, I mean, excuse me. First things first.
He's got to get it all out of his system. Get it all out of the system.
Oh, no.
All right, Joel, the Final Four for the college football playoff has been set. Alabama is number 1, taking on number 4, Oklahoma, while 2 versus 3 will be a battle of unbeaten teams in Clemson and Notre Dame. Georgia and Oklahoma left on the outside looking in. Joel, we'll start with you. Did the committee get this right, going with Oklahoma for that final spot?
I was actually proud of the committee. I thought that they exercised an incredible amount of restraint. I thought that there was way too much discussion out there publicly in support of Georgia, a 2-loss non-champ. I would have lost my mind if Georgia was in this playoff. There's no doubt about that. So I thought that they exercised a good amount of restraint and honored a championship won by Oklahoma, a great team, I feel like, in Oklahoma. The fact of the matter is that you had 3 teams that they were arguing between, and I felt like Ohio State probably got the short end of the stick, and I know that doesn't make you feel any better to at least acknowledge it, CC, but the bottom line is...
I'm a realist. I'm not one of those teams, I'm the guy's going to support my team. Like, if you lose to Purdue...
By 29.
Absolutely. And the style for which they lost to him. Like, you've almost forfeited, you punted on the chance to be able to get in there unless you get a bunch of help.
So think about it like this. I thought that the committee, and here's the problem, is that no one really knows the criteria, right? We're all just sitting here and we're
with the committee members
waiting.
changing year after year, the criteria can shift.
I think I've nailed it after whatever amount of 5 years now. First of all, if you just look at the committee's decision through this vein, path of least resistance, right? Because this is still a political committee by nature. Why? Because they have current ADs sitting on here. They've got to go back and be in this realm. Path of least resistance. And then also, what are these teams at their worst? So floor. So if you look at those two things, path of least resistance and floor, you always get to the 4 teams that they put in there. And if you say, okay, path of least resistance means that you're going to avoid the argument of trying to put a 2-loss non-champ in. Yep. And then you start looking at the floor of those 3 teams. The loss for Oklahoma was a 3-point loss to a ranked Texas team. And each Georgia and Ohio State had 20-plus point losses in this season. 1 to LSU for Georgia, and then obviously that Purdue game.
Does that mean the 4 best teams are in?
No.
No. And are you okay with that?
I'm absolutely okay with that. I've always been more honoring of the championships and one that thinks it should be most deserving. You've got to earn it on the field.
It has to be about deserving and not best, which is one of the reasons why, and we won't get into it, my UCF Golden Knights have been snubbed again because it's about deserving, not best. But we'll leave that there. I do want to ask you this.
Oh, that's funny.
In your eyes, did Jalen Hertz save Alabama? Because if Alabama, you said you would have lost your mind if Georgia got in with 2 losses. I don't think you would have lost your mind if Georgia had won and then Alabama still got in.
No, I would have lost my mind for that as well.
Really?
Yeah, because we got to stop giving Alabama a get-out-of-jail-free card, right? I mean, so let's just take a trip down memory lane here. Do you know that before 2011, the only other team in the AP poll era that won a national championship and didn't win their conference championship was in the 30s, and it was Minnesota, and that was the first year of the AP poll? Okay, and then all of a sudden 2011 rolls around, and we let Alabama rematch against LSU, and they win the national championship. Then they win the national championship last year, didn't win the SEC. If they would have gotten in again and won another national championship without winning a conference title, then all of a sudden you look around their trophy case, they would have had more national titles than they do SEC championship trophies.
But do you think they would have gotten in, though?
I think that they would have, and I'm glad that we avoided that situation because, again, I would have lost my mind.
I mean, Alabama, to me, I'm totally on the other side. They earned it throughout the season. Their ability to be consistent.
But against who?
Whoever was on the schedule.
I mean,
it's not as if
an average LSU
okay,
team?
Outside of Clemson, who else has this impressive resume? Yeah. Are you convinced about Notre Dame?
No, I'm not convinced about Notre Dame.
Okay, what about that defense of Oklahoma? How many points they going to give up in a big game?
Probably
of real football, not
54.
Big 12. Oh, okay. So, I mean, what Alabama has done.
It's been historic. You're right.
Yeah, and their defense. So even if you didn't have the quarterback. So for me, Jalen didn't save their season. They were already in.
Okay, but hold on. Is a championship game a postseason game? A conference championship game? Is that a postseason game?
I would say so, yes.
Okay, so in what realm of reality do you ever move on in the postseason with a loss?
We've been doing this in college football. It's an imperfect system.
Did you get to go play the Broncos after the missed field goals?
No, but I'm just operating within what they're operating.
I get it.
And if you are able to be as dominant as Alabama is, you can make the case for, man, they're as good as an Oklahoma team. Now, I understand the power conference, the 5 and everything. We just don't want to see rematches.
Yeah.
Maybe if the conversation was different, but the rematches, that's the thing I think that people want eliminated from the Final Four.
I don't know if the Tide was that dominant when they were tied at 10 with the Citadel in November.
But then they score like 50 straight after that. I mean, listen, I think we
tied
avoided,
at 10
I
at
get
halftime.
that. But
this is something that they're kids, and these kids are inconsistent emotionally. So it's not about coaching.
That's true.
So that happens more in college than we're going to see on the pros.
Let's be glad that we avoided this debate.
Which we basically just had.
Right.
Well, before we move on from Alabama, I just want to ask you about Jalen Hertz. It's such a great story. How much does what you saw this weekend alter his course at all for what he ends up doing?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that Jalen, in the future is going to have a harder time making a career of football just because his passing acumen is not probably to a standard that an NFL team is going to say, hey, we want you to be our guy as a franchise quarterback like they would with Tua. But this is such an unbelievable lesson of perseverance, character, integrity, commitment, all of those different things. I was so happy for him when I saw him come into the game, play as well as he did. You talk about a guy prepared for his opportunity, and it's not his first opportunity. He had it ripped from his heart. I mean, he was a great player, an SEC Player of the Year. He's in a national championship game. It doesn't go well for 2 quarters, and all of a sudden, boom, he's on the sideline, and yet he was still preparing himself for his next opportunity. It happened in their biggest moment. They're down 14 a couple of times, and he comes out and maybe plays his best game as a Alabama quarterback.
I thought you said it's a great story of perseverance. I want to make this part clear. I wouldn't have thought any less of Jalen Hurts if he had transferred.
I agree.
Right? Like
I
don't think we should. I don't want it to sound like this is Kelly Bryant. This is what you missed out.
No, I support Kelly Bryant.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
And I'm glad that even though he stayed, he got this moment. Like this is, sports don't always work out like that. Now, on the Heisman, I thought during the broadcast, you did a really good job of bringing up the fact that, hey, this isn't just a 2-man race.
Sure.
That Dwayne Haskins has had a historic season.
Sure.
During the game, he had already set almost all the Ohio State records, and during the game, he broke some of Drew Brees' Big Ten records conference-wide. I think you can make a very strong case for either of the three, Tua, Kyler, or Haskins. I don't think there's a wrong answer. The only, to me, wrong answer is, and you alluded to it on the broadcast, is the guys, and I know it's not the first year this has happened, but the 10, 11, 12% of voters that decided don't need to see what happens in conference championship weekend. I'm going to get an early start on my Thanksgiving and submit my ballot early. That I didn't like. I would vote Kyler, but I can listen to an argument for any of the three.
Yeah, this feels a little awkward, guys. You know why?
Why?
I agreed with everything he just said.
Yeah, you're on the. Yeah, that's bad.
I don't know about.
I thought he was going to say, I voted for Undisputed for like 16 things. That would have been awkward.
Listen, I totally agree. I think that any one of these players can be put in the first spot through the third spot. You can make an argument any direction. The only thing that I have no time for is somebody that told me last week it's all wrapped up and I'm going to put my ballot in before watching what just happened. And frankly, after what happened in the championship games, I won't be surprised at all if Kyler walks away with the trophy. I would have been a little surprised before this last week, but the way that those games played out, Tua going down, you can't really show me a game in which Tua carried his team to a victory. Now, he carried them to blowouts, and he was a huge reason why, which is why you can easily put him at the number 1 spot. But Kyler Murray was the most important player to his team throughout the season, and Dwayne Haskins was right next to him, right behind him, and carried Ohio State for a section of this season in which their defense and run game were not playing near up to their capabilities. I think all 3 of those guys were phenomenal, and I think it's a really cool year to see these 3 guys hopefully in New York.
Yeah, I think Tua was penalized because they were so good, and the reason why they were so good is because of him.
That's a good
And what
point.
I've seen him operate that offense, because let's just take this. This would be one of the criteria I think people should look at. Who did these kids replace in the same offense, and what is that offense doing now? So let's go to Tyler right there in Oklahoma, what he's doing, Baker Mayfield. They did basically the same thing. You could argue Kyler's a little bit better. Oh, okay, but in the Big 12, these are the numbers they put up year in, year out. Let's go to Ohio State. What did he do after taking over a 4-year starter, J.T. Barrett? Oh, broke all his records.
All of them.
The best passer in the great 125-year history at Ohio State.
And in the Big Ten.
So now let's go to Tua. Drew Brees there, too. So now let's go to Tua and what he did in Alabama. We saw he took over for Jalen. This is a totally different offense. This is like my man with the Rams running Alabama's offense now. So the difference in how these offenses operated, I think Tua was very, very special. He got nicked because they were blowing teams out.
Yeah.
Haskins were very, very special. Him and Kyler were very, very special. But I just believe Tua, what he did for the number 1 team would give him that little edge over the other 2.
A small argument. You're absolutely right, which is why it's easy to put Tua at number 1. Small argument would be that I did not see Dwayne Haskins' backup or Kyler Murray's backup have to come in 14 points down and clean up a mess and actually win a football game for their team this year.
Yeah, but it's one of those kind of things when I've aced the midterm, I've aced all the quizzes, the final, I missed a couple answers.
I know.
Sure, but what you also didn't see, and this is why you can circular argument, what you also didn't see was Tua ever lose a game.
Sure.
And you saw both of those guys lose a game. I do feel like if we had no knowledge of the 2017 football season, Kyler would be the heavy favorite. I think because Baker did what he did at Oklahoma, and because Tua did what he did in the national championship game, that Tua started this year way ahead.
Both of these kids, Tua and Haskins, when I saw them throw the ball, I knew they were special throwing the ball. So I didn't go back to the Michigan game when Haskins came in and saved the Buckeyes. No, I didn't go to the national championship. They were already special, just waiting to get on the stage. They got on the stage and they performed. They did not let us down.
And by the way, Dwayne's a remarkable kid. I just got to say that because I've gotten to meet him, obviously, and talk with him a few times. And
just out of curiosity, of the three, who do you think has the highest ceiling, the most potential at the next level?
As a pro? I think it's all situational, but Haskins, because of his stature and his quick release.
Tyler's going to be playing baseball.
Someone is going to come up with a system, and Tua's going to be throwing darts in the NFL. So him and Haskins, you can't teach big.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.